first.
Oh, you know what's cool that you can check out?
What?
That I heard yesterday for the first time. I was listening to Chicago 6,
Okay.
and there is a bonus track at the end on whatever the most current version of Chicago 6 is, with Chicago performing Tired of Being Alone with Al Green. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, I have to check that out. That sounds awesome. Let me write that down, actually. All right. I have a question for you. I want your honest opinion.
Absolutely.
This is hypothetical.
Okay.
But I want your honest opinion. What would your reaction be if, with no warning to you, but consistently from the point I started on, during various songs in our repertoire, like forgetting genre, I randomly start scatting during some of them? What would your reaction be? Like, for example, I want to just give you a quick example.
Mm-hmm.
I see a bare moon rising, skippity-dee-bow-bow-bow. I see trouble on the way. What would?
I think you just got my authentic reaction. I giggle. I would nod my head like, hell yeah. All right. Let's fucking do this. And then I probably look over at Alex and Mason, be like, you guys hearing this?
Yeah, Sydney and I were joking about it because so we're doing this Christmas holiday cabaret thing. Mm-hmm. My first foray into the theater world in 6-7 years. And I'm singing that Josh Groban song, and we're doing a duet. And the duet we're doing is jazzy. Like, it's like Kristen Chenoweth and some jazz singer / guitarist dude that I've never heard of before.
Okay. What's his name? Do you know off the top of your head or no?
No, it's something P. Kelly. Hold on.
Okay. Fair enough. You said jazz guitar, and I'm like, oh, I might know who it is.
I can find out. Because I can look up the song. Kristen Chenoweth. Kristen Chenoweth, Christmas duet. Maybe this is... No, that's not Kristen Chenoweth. Wait, that's weirder that it was Kristen Chenoweth. When did she duet with Nat King Cole? He's dead.
Yeah, not recently.
Oh my God, does she just duet with a bunch of dead musicians on Christmas songs? Is that guy dead? Is the guy that I'm making fun of dead? I'm not making fun of him. He sounded good, but now I'm questioning if he's dead.
Somebody's got to know.
I'm sure he's not dead. I didn't think he was dead. Is this it? I'm struggling. Where I don't know where any of the songs are, and I thought I did. It's like John something. John P.
Okay.
Chenoweth. John. I should put a space between John and P. That might help. Maybe it's not John.
John P.
Oh, she has a Christmas album.
Doesn't that make the most sense?
Yeah, no, that does, but that will definitely help me find this song.
Okay, fair enough.
Personnel. Here we go. Here we go. I'll get it here. John Pizzarelli.
Okay.
John Paul Pizzarelli Jr.
John Paul Pizzarelli Jr.
Or Pizzarelli, but I assume it's
Pizzarelli.
Pizzarelli. He's a jazz guitarist and vocalist who is alive.
Good for him.
Not only duetting with dead guys.
Or not good for him. I don't know.
Who knows what he's got.
Depends.
John Pizzarelli.
Pizzarelli.
But it's a very jazzy duet.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay.
Right, that's how we got here.
Yeah, I'm into it. And then there's just comes a point where he just starts scatting. And I'm like, Sydney, what the fuck? Like, I'm about to be scatting on this stage. So, definitely coming back with a vengeance here.
I love it. I mean, if you do it, I'm in. We like to. We're all about experimenting.
That's exactly what I said. I told Sydney I'm going to start doing that as a joke, and she's like, "Oh my god, they would kill you." And I was like, "Are you kidding? They would love it.
We would love it."
And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Because if I start actually scatting during classic rock songs, it gives them the excuse to start throwing like seventh chords and weird shit in there."
Yeah,
because I've opened the jazz door.
Please.
If I open the jazz door, they'll walk through the jazz door.
We will walk through the jazz door.
All right. Do you feel ready?
I feel ready.
Okay. I think I also feel ready.
All right. Well, then I'm going to get started in the count of 3, 2, 1.
TotemTalks, it's TotemTalks, TotemTalks. Hold on for TotemTalks.
Okay, that last part sounded kind of familiar. You had one place you could have gone where I would have been locked in for the intro today, and you didn't go there. So,
because
TotemTalks is a podcast. I do not listen to it. Blah blah blah. That's all I would have had. I mean,
I get it, but I wanted to go with my artist and not your artist.
That's fine. That's fine.
Also, realistically, the plethora of songs I wanted to sing wouldn't have made sense.
Yeah, because we didn't listen to them this week.
Exactly. You see, you're with me.
No, I get it.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Totem Talks. We are in our half season, season 7.5.
Right.
That's so 90s.
Hey.
And it certainly was this week. We beat our heads against that 90s wall a little bit this week.
We did.
We made our way through it, though, happy, proud. But I bet you're wondering who the hell we are. And I'll tell you the truth. That's Nick. I'm Pat. We're Totem Talks, a music podcast dedicated
to the one I love.
Yes, dedicated to the one I love. Goddamn. Dedicated to scouring the planet, nay, the universe.
Yeah, I would do even interdimensional artists if that was something that was available to us.
And maybe one day it will be.
I hope.
That'll really open the door.
Yeah.
But we are scouring the known universe to deliver to you the greatest musical artist of all time. The question, as it always is, Nick, did we do that this week?
Time will tell.
Time will certainly tell.
I think time will make it very clear today.
I think also just in the nature of time telling, if time ever tells us that one of these two artists is the greatest artist of all time, we must reevaluate time itself.
We must absolutely reevaluate.
I just want to be
time.
clear about that.
I'm already skeptical of time just at the suggestion.
That's true. Honestly, you're offended by the question.
Ugh,
I understand. Nick, why don't you go ahead and just let the cat out of the bag, man? Who are we covering today?
I would love to. Hopefully, our trading intros made it obvious which artists we covered respectively this week. But we're kicking things off with Wilson Phillips, and we're moving on into Ace of Base.
So true.
That's it.
Yep, that's who we got today. As always, just give you a breakdown of our formula. We covered 3 albums by each artist. We will do a little bit of comparing and contrasting between albums, between artists. Eventually, we score them, come up with the winner of the episode, and the winner gets a stern thumbs up from us. A very stern thumbs up.
I guess.
I just want to be clear. It's not like a happy thumbs up. We're not enjoying it.
A slight nod of the head in acknowledgement.
Yes, as I think that's all that is earned. Yeah. All right, without any further ado, let's start off with Wilson Phillips. Wilson Phillips is an American pop vocal group formed in Los Angeles in 1989. Now, the years active are a little inconsistent. We have 1989 to 1993. We have a reunion in 2001. We have another reunion from 2004 to 2006. And then once again from 2010 to the present day.
Oh, wow. How about that? Okay.
So that's what we've got. That is Wilson Phillips. We covered 3 albums, as I mentioned. We started with the eponymous debut, Wilson Phillips, came out in 1990. As you know, if you caught to our theme, it would make sense.
It would.
We followed that up with Shadows and Light, which came out just before you did, a week before you were born, Nick, in 1992. And then Dedicated was the final album we covered, and that came out in 2012.
That's right.
Quite
the
a
year
jump.
that the world ended.
Yeah, and
I'm
honestly,
still holding on to that. I think it's over.
Look, the only reason I'm going to say that is not what caused the end of the world, 2012, is because Harambe was 2016.
That's true. 2016 when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Oh, well. We're all just hanging on to a post-apocalyptic society at this point. Speaking of post-apocalyptic societies, let's talk about Wilson Phillips. And here's the thing. Wilson Phillips has some very interesting stuff going on for them. We'll talk about some of the facts about Wilson Phillips after we cover their albums. But they are a vocal trio. 2 sisters and then a childhood friend got together and made a bunch of songs. And there's some good and some bad here. I'll be quite honest with you. We'll start with the good. They're good singers. The harmonies are good. The harmonies sound tight. They are very, very pleasant to listen to. The first 3 songs were enjoyable. Back to back to back. Hold On is the one I sang in the beginning. It's by far their most famous song. It's realistically one of the only songs you'll have heard by them. If you've heard other songs by Wilson Phillips, they are also on this album. Release Me, Impulsive are 1, 2, and 3. They're the 3 released singles for this album. And they are all quite popular. After that, you kind of hit the Wilson Phillips wall, as I'll call it. And that is where you realize these are 3 talented vocalists who harmonize well, but absolutely don't harmonize differently ever. It's the same harmony over and over again, and the songs are the same over and over again, and 'tis quite boring by the end of a 45-minute album. It was, like I said, 3 songs where I went, oh, cool, it's Wilson Phillips. I recognize them. And then from 4 to 10, I'm like, oh, it's still Wilson Phillips. And have we changed songs yet? Are we still, I mean, just everything is super similar.
Yes.
And that is a bit of a detriment.
Okay. Did you really say this band was formed by two sisters and a childhood friend and not like the children of
Well, I
a
have that in my
okay, you're gonna
facts to
talk
give.
okay.
Yeah. Don't
I
worry
mean, I
about
feel
it.
like
I
it's
said
obvious, but
it's
okay.
pretty obvious to me.
Okay.
We'll definitely have to
Okay.
talk about it on the third album.
Yeah.
I
Oh, for
figured
sure.
that's
Yeah,
when
the
it would
third
come
album
up.
makes it you can't escape it. Okay. So I don't really know the hits of Wilson Phillips the way that you do. They were maybe
Hold on. I want to be very clear. I don't know the hits of
the
Wilson
way that you
Phillips.
could like sing a line of it. I
Okay.
still could.
It's like I am certainly not somebody who would claim
Sure.
any knowledge of the Wilson Phillips discography before literally today.
Sure. Let me put it this way. If I've heard these songs before, which I feel like I've probably heard them once or twice before, I heard them in the late 1990s in like the after school program in the gym at my elementary school when I was waiting for one of my parents to finish work and come pick me up when they were just like playing music over the gym speakers that was popular on the radio at the time to like entertain the kids while they were waiting to be taken home.
What a
That's
very
the level
specific time to have
that
heard.
yes. And it's funny because the only songs that I've ever heard pretty except for one by the other band also are from that same exact period and the same exact place in my life. The only places I could have ever heard this type of music. Um so this whole thing um is filled with a lot of great musicians in the studio. I want to make that clear. Like between Glenn Ballard and Michael Landau, Joe Walsh, Steve Lukather, tons of great guitar players coming on here. Paulinho da Costa, who's one of the all-time great percussionists. Um, and they couldn't save this album. I mean, it was terrible to listen to.
Dude, I want to be so clear. Listening, like reading that list of musicians on this album, I'm like, what were they doing?
I don't know.
Can you
I
imagine
mean,
bringing
they
Joe
were
Walsh and
doing
Steve
what their
Lukather in
job
and
was,
having them play
right, but
Wilson
they were
Phillips
doing their
songs?
job. They were doing what they were paid to
Right,
do.
but
Like,
you
but
literally have Joe
because it was
Walsh
the
and
kids
Steve
of
Lukather among
yeah,
others, and you're like, hey, cool. Hey, yeah, Luke Joe, here, come over here. Okay, cool. These are the 4 chords you're going to play the whole album. And
yeah.
you're going to strum them the same way throughout the album. Don't. Oh, I'm sorry. You made a riff there. Stop. That's what it felt like. It
Yeah, I
was
don't
like,
know what they were doing with these musicians. They didn't use them to their full potential. I feel like the production on this album is again something that you could pinpoint within two years, maybe. Like you hear this and you're like, oh, this came out at some point between like 89 and 91.
yeah.
Like there's
And
no way it came out at any other time.
it's just that
It's
tail end of the '80s, but you're not
but
quite
really the
there.
beginning of
Yeah.
90s pop.
Yep.
But I mostly agreed with the Calgary Herald review of this album, which was slick production and the fact that the gals harmonize nicely can't mask a shallowness so profound it makes some other pop artist that I've never heard of seem deep.
Some other pop artist you've never heard of. That's
Yeah,
fun.
Martika is what it was called. I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, like it's slickly produced, but in a way that's like so identifiable. And I don't like this early 90s pop production. I don't know if have made that clear on like 3 other episodes at some point. I hate the way this album sounds. I hate the way it sounds.
Yeah.
I hate that early 90s pop production. I don't like pop songs. And you know what? I really don't like pop ballads. That doesn't save it for me. This album was not good for me. I did not enjoy a moment of it.
Totally
So I
fair.
had really high hopes going into Shadows and Light that it would
I'm sure
be a
you
strong
did.
recovery. And I'm going to start by saying something that they improved on. In the first album, they only wrote 6 of the 10 songs. And on this album, they pretty much did all the writing. So good for them. They also were smart enough to bring in another all-star cast of musicians. This time, some different names like Greg Fillinganes on keys. Lee Sklar played bass on a couple of tunes. So, like some of your people who were also awesome before, and a handful of new all-time great musicians were also on this. Here's what I'll say. I worked from the office this week.
Okay.
And what's really good about that was that I was able to listen to this album on YouTube, and it's not going to go into like my Apple Music algorithm, and they're not going to be recommending me albums that sound like this.
Oh
Uh,
man. That's why I
I
have a
mean,
separate profile for Totem Talks.
yeah, smart. I mean, this was not good. The songs were slow, boring pop ballads that just sucked. Um, I put some of them up to 1.25 speed on YouTube to try to see if they could be remotely interesting, and it was, like, better, but still bad. Um, so, basically, I spent the entire time and it was way too long. There was no reason for this album to be almost an hour long. But I spent the full hour, like, hoping that it would be over soon, and sometimes even just speeding up the songs, partially because I wanted it to be over soon, and partially because some of these tracks were just way too slow.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to die for 55 minutes and 49 seconds.
55.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how I felt about this album.
Well, at least you were impartial, and I'll give you credit for that.
Thank you.
Here's the thing, though. Here's where we're different. I read the track listing for this album, including the writing credits, and I got legitimately excited for this album.
Oh no.
Like truly, I like the first album was a dud.
Yes.
That is an album that I would call fine.
Okay.
Because I know I dislike the style less than you, though I don't like the style.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't
and
actively make you angry all the time.
And there was a couple the ticks of nostalgia. Like I said, I know the song "Hold On."
Yeah.
So I had those moments, and I thought their harmonies were showcased talent, although didn't showcase depth.
I agree.
This album, I got very excited when I saw that most of these songs were co-written by Glenn Ballard, who co-wrote Jagged Little Pill with Alanis.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, like this is before Jagged Little Pill. Is this going to be some because this album didn't perform as well, and it kind of was the drop off of their fame for a while, Wilson Phillips. And I was like, oh my God, could this be one of those albums that like the Wilson Phillips fans hated and it broke up the band, but I'm going to like because Glenn Ballard wrote it and I like Jagged Little Pill.
Yeah, well.
Which was all the more disappointing when I listened to the album and went, Glenn.
Oh no.
I now realize most of the writing was Alanis.
I would hope.
I mean, dear Lord. I wish I didn't read it first. I normally listen before I read, but because I was in a work meeting, I couldn't be listening. So I wanted to just do some reading about the album. And I was like, oh my God, I might like this. This would be good. It was not. It's longer than the first album. It's slower than the first album. It's somehow less risk taking than the first album.
Yeah, which is
crazy
in and of itself.
Yeah, because if the first album is Vanilla Rice Pudding, this album went whoa.
That's
rice is
spicy.
way too big of a risk. Way too big of a risk. We got to just do vanilla pudding here.
Yeah.
Super boring. Again, on the positive, their trio of vocal harmonies sounds good.
Yes.
And I will say, specifically with Wilson Phillips, to their credit, but also more detriment than credit, the similarity of the songs makes it instantly recognizable to me.
Okay,
I think from now on, if it's ever brought to my attention that a Wilson Phillips song is on, I will know it's Wilson Phillips because I'll be like, it all sounds like the same song. It's the Wilson Phillips song.
Right.
Wilson Phillips has one song that just happens to be 6 hours long and spread over the course of 5 albums. That's how
one
I
of
feel.
Which doesn't count because it's
Christmas.
Yes,
and we are getting to the one that doesn't count. So, Nick mentioned before, as we get to Dedicated, that you're just going to mention its two sisters and their childhood friend and not mention who they are. And I was waiting until this album.
Okay, fair enough.
Because this album, if you don't know who Wilson Phillips is,
you're
like, hey, what the fuck is it? Why? Because this is a cover album of songs by the Beach Boys and the Mamas and the Papas, which becomes a lot more understandable when you realize that Wilson Phillips is the combination of the children of John and Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas, so China Phillips, and also Carney and Wendy Wilson, who are the daughters of Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. So you better be able to sing harmony if those are your parents. I mean, come on. And this is a absolute milquetoast cover album. I was like, this album physically hurt me because 11 of the 12 tracks were 50% as good as the original. The only one that I'll call 70% as good as the original is Good Vibrations.
Yep, we're in agreement.
Good Vibrations was by far the best Wilson Phillips song I listened to today. And they did a good job of it. I also have no idea, like, I'm going to get very specific about the song, which I don't normally do, but I have to ask you, Nick.
I would love to be asked.
The bass part was, I mean, that had to be processed, right? There was no way any of those members were actually going, I'm picking up good vibrations, like in that key.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I couldn't tell because it sounded so vocal fry guttural that I was like, maybe? I mean, they're older.
But still, it feels like maybe that couldn't have happened. But I don't know.
I would agree. But yeah, I mean, literally, there are no risks taken here in this cover album. Every cover is like they took the original song, transposed the key very slightly to be comfortable in a 3 female vocal group voice part, and then played it as is.
Yeah.
Why? I can listen to the originals for
agree.
that.
So I actually went into this one sort of with the way you went into the second one, because I looked at the track listing and I'm like, oh, these are good songs.
Yeah.
So, so maybe this will be good. And it sort of sounds like the Hallmark Channel paid 3 good singers, but who, like, not famous people, like $5,000 each to record an album of vocal covers of Beach Boys and Mamas and Papa song for like a weird Hallmark movie they were doing, where like maybe the main 2 characters had those as their favorite bands or something. You have to really scrape through a lot of cheese that they've covered these songs in. It just sounds something about the production on Wilson Phillips albums is just like anathema to authenticity. It
honestly,
cannot sound like authentic art. Like they're just like,
it's
just keep processing it over and over and over again until it sounds like something that could only be like played in a mall.
It's so heavily processed that I actually went and specifically sought out a couple different live recordings of them.
That makes sense.
Because I wanted to hear, like, is it because they can't do the hard? Like, what is forcing them to have to overprocess this so much?
Right.
But they sound good live. I mean, harmony-wise.
They can definitely sing.
It's weird to me. I agree with you. It's weird. But yeah, very disappointed in this album.
Very disappointing.
I had my hopes up a little bit.
No.
Mistake.
Big mistake. Huge.
It is what it is. All right.
I'll
give you some facts.
These gals.
So here's the thing. The unique fact we've already said. What's more unique than being a vocal trio that has been formed from the children of 2 like monumentally famous groups?
Sure.
Mamas and the Papas and the Beach Boys are both extremely famous, and you are their spawn, and you form a group.
Been spawned.
So I think super easy, unique quality.
Yeah,
about
that's
them
fair.
There. The highlight. Unfortunately, there's really no other option. You have to go with their debut album, Wilson Phillips.
That's fair.
It went 5 times platinum in the U.S. It peaked at number 2 on the Billboard 200 chart for 10 weeks. It's been 125 weeks on the charts, including a full year at the top 10. So it's sold over 8 million albums worldwide. It released 5 singles and had the group nominated for 5 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best New Artist. They won none of them.
Good.
But they were nominated for 5.
Fair.
So, doesn't get much more of a highlight than that. You enter the scene and gangbusters. That's pow. I don't know, because I was not alive, how much the studio was marketing them as the children of the. I don't know what that marketing would have been.
Or if it would have even, like, because how many people who were like fans of the parents' music were gonna like this music?
Well, you're right. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying, like, I don't know if that was like the initial push of getting them radio play or things like that to then spread. I don't know.
Okay, that's
I don't want to belittle their success by saying that's what it was, because that's not fair to them.
Sure.
So I'll say that I don't know. And
there's a rich tapestry of reasons.
Yeah.
One of which it's you know, implicitly or explicitly, you're going to act differently around the children of extremely rich and famous people.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely assume that their parents being who they are is directly the reason why this album is star-studded in musicians.
Sure, as they all were.
Right. Like, I would have to assume that, at least. Now, moving on fact-wise to the lowlights, I felt a little bad because I was looking for lowlights and I was having trouble finding them, and I ended up just kind of picking on China Phillips.
That's all right.
So we'll start small. Small lowlight. China Phillips battled a drug and alcohol addiction as a teenager. It is unfortunate. It's more common than it should be with children of famous people.
Exactly.
We'll move on to the next smallest lowlight is their 1993 breakup. So pretty much right after the release.
That was their highlight for me.
Well, you know, if you're a Wilson Phillips fan, the band breaking up, and like kind of right at their peak when you would think about it, like they had their first album went 5 times platinum, gangbusters, as I mentioned. Their second album, which we did cover, was Shadow and Light, went platinum. So still platinum.
That's
and
still
charted well and sold well. And then they broke up. China Phillips went solo for a bit. The Wilson sisters did a couple things throughout, but you know, none of them were performing at the level they were until they got back together and started releasing music again. We'll move on to in October of 2019. So we're moving up the low light charts.
Right.
China Phillips again revealed that her son Vance had been diagnosed with cancer the year prior, but is in remission.
Okay, well that's good.
So you know we're climbing the ladder of lowlights, and of course the biggest lowlight in the life of China Phillips is in September 2009, when her half sister Mackenzie Phillips had a absolute bombshell memoir drop that her and her father John Phillips had a 10-year consensual incestuous relationship.
Yeah,
that definitely stemmed from an assault, allegedly. That is a crazy story that I recommend reading up on. The very spark-noted version of it is the night of her first wedding, she woke up to her father in her bed. They then had a 10-year relationship that ended when she got pregnant and didn't know who the father was, and her father paid for an abortion, and then they called it off. This is all alleged. I don't know if it happened. I was certainly not there. Varying people have come out against this and said it's not true. Multiple wives and ex-wives of John at the time all said that they didn't believe Mackenzie. China Phillips, however, says she does believe Mackenzie.
Yeah.
So maybe not necessarily a low light specifically about Wilson Phillips, However, the news broke.
Just a low light to anyone who's aware
Yeah.
of that
Just
story.
a crazy situation. So
It's just I feel worse having heard it.
yeah, so did I, and that's why I was like,
Ugh.
I have to talk about it. So just a low light in the life of a member of Wilson Phillips, because she found out about it in 1997. That's what she said.
Okay.
That her sister told her in 1997, which was 11 years after the affair stopped. So, moving on.
Great.
Meanest and nicest. I have nothing for meanest unless if you would like to count their discography as the meanest thing
It
they've
was
done to
mean
you.
to me.
Yeah, I would allow it. So a couple small things that I found for charity. This isn't a group that's like uber famous anymore, so it's kind of hard to find a lot of their philanthropic things.
Mm-hmm.
However, during Pride Month, Carney Wilson's side business Love Bites by Carney donated $10 from each Pride pack sold to the Q Center.
Okay.
So obviously supporting Pride. Wilson Phillips participated in a charity event on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills to raise money for Children's LA.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
does that money go towards preventing those children from having to watch that show?
I don't know if there could be enough money for that, honestly. And then, of course, Team Wilson Phillips won the fast money on Family Feud for their charity and Celebrity Family Feud.
I love it, and I will also at some point bring up a game show.
Wow. That's...
It will be a first. TotemTalks first.
Okay. And speaking of...
Yeah, 3 off there, didn't I?
Speaking of game shows / music competition shows, the 6 Degrees of TotemTalks. In 2022, Wilson Phillips competed on Season 8 of The Masked Singer. They played the characters known as the Lambs. Now, there's been so many people on The Masked Singer. I'm not going to go through all of them because we have a lot of overlap between our group. I'm just going to tell you the 2 artists from Season 8
okay.
that apply. And that is
7?
What?
You mean 7? We haven't started
Season 8
yet.
of The Masked Singer.
Oh.
Gotcha. Season 8 of The Masked Singer had, 15 or 16 artists. Just using those artists, 2 of them count as 6 Degrees of TotemTalks. Okay. One of which is George Clinton, who played the Gopher. So George Clinton of Parliament fame, obviously. Yes. And then also Chris Kirkpatrick of NSYNC was the Hummingbird.
Okay.
So those are just using Season 8. I mean, because otherwise we'd be here all day, because I'm sure I could find 10 or 12 at least.
Yeah, I'll bet you could.
And that is Wilson Phillips.
Excellent. Let's move on to Ace of Base. Ugh.
Don't release your tension like it gets better here.
Yeah, it does not.
There we go. All right. I am ready.
Then I am also ready. And I will begin in 3, 2, 1.
Ace of Base is a Swedish pop group formed in 1987, originally consisting of siblings Jonas, Lynn, and Jenny Berggren, also containing Ulf Ekberg.
That's right.
And they, unlike Wilson Phillips, were active in 1987, still active today, no breaks, no slowing down.
Good for them, I guess.
Yeah, they're just going. We covered 3 albums. We started with Happy Nation, which
The U.S.
also,
version.
yeah, which also could be called The Sign,
Yes.
which came out in either 1992 or 1993, depending on the name.
Right.
Then we followed that up with The Bridge from 1995. And then we closed things out with The Golden Ratio from 2010. And we'll find out if the ratio was indeed golden.
We will. We will. Okay. So we'll start by saying this first album was obviously their huge hit success breakthrough. The US version is called The Sign. If you don't know anything else about Ace of Base, even if you didn't know that they sang it, they sing the song The Sign. They saw the sign and it opened up their eyes.
Yeah.
It was their biggest hit. It's their biggest album. And I guess The Sign is maybe their best song, you could say. But the rest of it, my stance was pretty much I hated it all. It's electro dance pop, and I don't like that even a little bit. Like it's not for me. I mean, I thought what was interesting, honestly, what I thought was the most interesting was as I was listening to this, as I mentioned, I did this week at work, and so I was listening on YouTube. There were several times when I did not know the difference between whether a YouTube ad was playing or whether the next Ace of Base song had started.
Yeah, that's
where I stand. This was just there couldn't have been anything in the world made less for my amusement than this album.
Yes, although I will say, Nick, I think we should re-listen to all 3 of these.
No.
We'll go into your basement.
How much am I getting paid?
You're not getting paid anything. We're gonna go into your basement. We're gonna like put the subwoofer. We're gonna hook it up to the subwoofer, and we're just gonna grind and take ecstasy. And I think that'll help.
I mean, that seems like the only way that anyone would listen to this album. So
I think that'll help a lot. Yeah, this album's not good for me. It's not good for me at all. It's tough. It's like if I were to ask, like it really feels like it's so not built for us at all.
Yep.
That it's like if I were to ask you to give a review of like a steakhouse.
Exactly.
Like you would be like,
well, their fries were okay, I guess.
Yeah, you'd be like, everything in this thing disgusts me, although I get that other people like it.
Sure.
Like that's what it feels like. Like I hated this. I will say, listening to it, other than The Sign, they run into a bit of a Wilson Phillips problem in the fact that the songs kind of bleed together.
Oh, absolutely.
And like almost even more so than Wilson Phillips, because it's so obvious that they're using like the same tempo, the same time signatures, the same BPM, really just so they can play this whole album in a club and have people lose their fucking minds for 45 minutes. Yep. Probably closer to like an hour and a half, because halfway through the album they're gonna go like wop pop 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 pop, and like do the beat drop and all that craziness.
Sure.
I've never felt older than that sentence. They're gonna do all the craziness. They're dropping the beat.
The kids do these days.
Is Skrillex still around?
I don't know.
But yeah, realistically, sucked. Not my vibe. Move on to The Bridge, which now I know I was a little harsh towards the first one, as were you.
Of course.
But this one was worse. It was worse. It was sad. Here's the thing. I'm being a little facetious because I don't think it actually was worse. I think it was the same level of bad, with one exception, and I'm doing my best to give them credit here. A couple of these songs sounded different. There was a couple acoustic numbers that...
Yeah, it was a little bit more diverse.
It was a little more diverse. I still didn't like the choices they made in their songs. So like it's hard for me to give like a glowing compliment here, but the diversity definitely made it go from unbearable to unpleasant.
Yeah, okay, that's nice. I mean, I think it was still pretty unbearable, but I acknowledge that it was unbearable in slightly different ways.
Yeah.
Um, this album was way too long. Why was it an hour? Why
Yeah.
was it an hour?
Uh, Listen, man, I don't.
There's no need. There was no need. You
It's
could have
1
cut
hour
back
that
by
feels
half the
like
songs
4
and no one would have
hours.
known. It really did feel like 4 hours. And at this point, like, keep in mind, I've already listened to Wilson Phillips. I feel like I'm just drowning in an ocean of high fructose corn syrup. I mean, like, it's just the most saccharine, disgusting, so sweet it makes you want to throw up pop music album after album after album. And the only thing that was like as cheesy and corny in a super 90s way as the music was the actual cover of the album itself. I don't know if you looked at
Oh,
this, but you
oh
should
yeah,
look at it. It's like you
yeah,
can look at that and be like, "Oh, this is going to be the most fucking asinine pop album that's ever been made," just by looking at that cover.
yeah. I don't disagree. Although I gotta say, bottom left's pose. I love the. I love the like. I can't even. Like the chicken wing he's got going on. Like very much like. I think I look just like. I think we're twins.
You think?
I mean, with that pose, I think we were twins.
Yeah,
Ow, that
it's
hurt my elbow to do.
it's a pose. It's a pose. It's, the halfway almost akimbo.
Well, it's just funny. The album cover is funny to me because like the two women are just like, this is my headshot, and they look good,
Mhm.
and both guys are like, the dude in the top left is like, his pose is the inspiration for every Pitbull pose ever. Like
Not a compliment.
I don't know. That's all I got too on
Yeah.
that. We can make fun of the album cover all day, but
Okay.
why when the music is
Yeah,
bad?
the music's so bad. Speaking of really, really bad music, I'm gonna get into the golden ratio. And here's what I'll say. This came on. I at the time wasn't looking at any of the I didn't know when this album was from. I just knew it was the last one. And I was like 3 seconds in, I was like, oh wow, this must be like 2010. And then I went and I checked. I'm like, oh, okay, it's 2010. It's exactly 2010. And it was like, think of like the most remarkable and unpleasant pop music from the year 2010 that you can think of. And this pretty much just sounds like that. But again, it's like 47 minutes long. So no, please, not anymore. Um, it's just so bland. It's just for dancing. There's like and that's what it's designed for, and that's fine. Like if this is just something to dance to and you're like, the music's not art in and of itself, it's just supposed to make me want to feel like dancing, then okay, then you could probably have fun with this on somehow. It'll just feel like the extended 47-minute long cut of some stupid pop song. Oh, and by the way, in case you haven't noticed, the two lead singers have changed. We have two new women who are singing, whose names are Clara and Julia.
Yes.
So that's different.
Which is interesting because not only are they sisters, but their brother is still in the band. I don't know. The only quote unquote members of the band at this point are
The two
Jonas
gentlemen.
and Ulf,
Right.
also known as Buddha and
Joker.
Joker. Joker and Buddha are the two members of the group now. Everyone else are former members. So
Right.
I guess Joker and Buddha were like, we could just hire women to sing these songs as we DJ.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean,
I guess I should give my review of the album in case anybody has
I
any
guess so.
doubts. This was the worst album of the three. Not only the three, it was the worst
week.
album of the six. And I say that after having my heart broken by
Sure.
the third Wilson Phillips album, where it made me question my life a little bit.
Yeah, well, as you
but
should
this
on a
album
regular
just
basis.
sucked.
It sucked.
It was absolute soulless nonsense. There wasn't a real lyric to be found on
No.
3 albums of work.
Nope.
Like, not once did I ever hear a lyric that I believed or appreciated at all.
That's totally fair.
And also, like, it's not like digital. It's all digital nonsense as well. You know, although by its very nature, it is electronic, electro pop.
Which, you know, like, I don't want to come off as a hater because I like defended a group like Kraftwerk to my dying breath on this podcast because I thought what they were doing was original and authentic.
Yeah.
So we're not
it's all
just
about how you play the
like
instrument.
right. We're not just like being boomerish and saying, "Oh, it was electronic and it's bad."
No, 100%. I agree with you.
It was just very bad.
It's the nature of it being electronic, is not what makes it bad. However,
Exactly.
I will say, in my experience with music that is heavily electronic, it is much easier for it to be bad.
Yeah, I think so too, and part of it's like a bias. So if I hear 2 albums that are equally soulless and one is fully done with drum machines and electronic patches for like keyboard sounds, and the other one is done with bass, drums, guitar, and keyboard, I'm gonna like the soulless album with bass, drums, guitar, and keyboard more because that's what I'm biased towards, like enjoying those sounds.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, let's talk about this group. Here's what's unique.
Tell me some stuff.
The way that they ended up finding success. So they're doing their pop thing. They're recording early demos of their songs and they're sending them out to people. And so they send out one of their demo tapes of a song called Mr. Ace to a guy named Dennis Pop.
Okay.
Dennis with a Z at the end and Pop.
Okay.
And he was, I guess, somebody in the industry who could help get them recorded and listened to. And he was not really impressed at all. Like he didn't really care for the song. But the tape that they sent him also got stuck in his car's tape player, and he had to listen to it over and over and over again until
Are you telling me the
found
tragedy
the
of a suicidal man?
Oh,
okay.
No. Until he found the potential in that record, and he called the band, and he recorded the song with them, and it ended up being one of their bigger hits on the first album, All That She Wants.
Okay, hold on. You're telling me that the reason that we had to listen to 3 Ace of Base albums today
is because
some dude got Stockholm syndrome in his car?
Correct. Well, they're literally Swedish, Pat. I don't know where do you think the term comes from?
God damn it. Oh no.
I'm sure you weren't thinking about that when you said Stockholm syndrome, which only goes to prove that this is where it comes from.
That's insane.
Yes. For the highlight of this group, it's hard not to go with Happy Nation / The Sign. I mean, it sold 9 times platinum in the US, diamond in Canada, all sorts of platinums and golds all over Europe, 21 million copies worldwide. It's one of the best-selling debut albums of all time by some miracle. Has like their biggest hits on it. It was given multiple Grammy nominations and all sorts of Swedish Grammy stuff. So that's their highlight. It is what it is. Their low light is kind of interesting, and it's part of why the band's makeup is what it is. Malin, or Lynn, as she went by, like pretty much hated the Fame right away. She was not a fan. She did not like what it did to them. Because it's weird that we've seen 2 pop groups who started out immensely popular and then kind of receded.
Yeah.
But in 1997, she started only performing keys in the background during their live shows instead of singing. And then she stopped giving interviews after that year. And eventually she left the band basically with an agreement from the other members that they would never even ask her back. And they're still on good, like all, the 3 family members from the original lineup are all still on good terms, and they're fine, and they're happy family, but they just know that like the certain things that come with fame were just not for Lynn, and she wasn't going to do it. And they respected that boundary. But part of the reason that Lynn was maybe so upset about this idea of fame actually comes from the other low light, which happened in 1994 when Jenny and her mother, the mother of, I guess, 3 of the members of the band, were attacked by like a crazed fan with a knife inside their
Oh,
home.
jeez.
And they're fine. But it was definitely like a waking up about what kind of things can come along with fame type moment for them.
Yeah, that's, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
terrible.
it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. For nice, I didn't find anything. For mean, though, for mean, Ulf is the only one who's not a sibling. As a teenager, and this is still something that's heavily Googled about them from the fill in your search results, was in a skinhead gang, and he was
Oh
like a
my
little
gosh.
Nazi teenager. Now, ever since then, he has publicly condemned his younger self over and over and over again and completely disavowed everything that he did as a dumb teenager and is like very strongly against it. So like he never tried to hide it or run from it. He's like, no, I was a dumb kid and I've completely changed. So I got to give the man credit where credit is due.
Honestly, I do as well. I think that people can succumb to pressures and peer pressures,
Especially if you're a
and
teenager,
environments.
you're not even, you don't
Yeah.
even have most of your brain at that point.
Yep, I think it's all about making the right choice every day.
Sure. Yeah.
I that's the way that I believe. So I agree with you. I give him credit for acknowledging his
I
past
put it out
errors.
there, but I mean,
Yeah.
it was a low light in his past, but he's moved past it, and I don't think, it's something that we need to be worried about. All right, 6 Degrees. The Sign. It's their big hit. It's been
Yeah.
covered by a lot of people.
It's in Pitch Perfect.
It was, but it was also covered by Jodie Sweetin's band in Full House. And
Okay.
as I think you might know, one direction I could go from here is Full House and Jodie Sweetin. That was a show that also included Dave Coulier,
Yeah.
the source material for You Ought to Know from Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill that you brought up earlier.
Yeah.
But to bring in my game show connection as well, in the year 2022, Jodie Sweetin, after, giving her all to Ace of Bases, The Sign, as an adult went on to one of the like revitalizations of the Name That Tune game show, the one with Jane Krakowski as host. And she went up against Frankie Muniz.
Yeah, and the
I
ghost
looked
of Randy
desperately
Jackson.
Yes. I looked everywhere to try to find this episode so that I could make a connection from Ace of Base to Full House to Jodie Sweetin to this TV show to that episode. And I couldn't find this episode or any description or any of the songs that were listed in it anywhere. And then I found
What of Name That Tune?
Yes. And
It's
then
it's on Hulu.
Not that season.
Really?
That's what it was saying when I was looking at it online.
I believe you.
And I found the TV promo, like the cable promo clip of 20 seconds from that episode.
Yeah.
And Jodie Sweetin's opponent, Frankie Muniz, correctly identifies the song Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond, who we have in fact covered on the podcast.
Fascinating.
And that's it. That's what I got.
So that's one of Sydney and I's guilty pleasure shows, like our Friday night gardening shows that we'll watch, because guessing music is what I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that season was so weird because I believe it's the second season of the reboot.
That's right.
Season 1 is all normal
Just
contestants,
normal folks.
And then COVID happened.
Okay, gotcha.
And they filmed in Australia.
Okay.
For the second half of the first season, and then the second season, they didn't want to do that anymore, and so they just had celebrities.
Okay.
Instead of like flying people to Australia to compete, can name that tune.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so it was interesting, but love Jane Krakowski.
Yeah, she's great in 30
I
Rock,
love Jane
and I'm sure
Krakowski,
she's been in other things.
and she's been in plenty of other things.
Right, like 30 Rock.
Yeah. And Schmigadoon, which I'm sure you know well.
What?
Yeah, I know. You don't like musicals enough to like Schmigadoon, but you would like the humor of Schmigadoon.
Okay.
And the cast. I mean, it's Keegan-Michael Key.
I love him.
Yeah, and he's great in it. He's the lead.
Yeah.
He's excellent, and everyone's excellent. Alan Cummings in it's good.
Okay.
But yeah, what a connection you made.
I did my best for you. I'm just glad we both ended up being able to mention a game show.
Yeah, honestly, that's good stuff. All right, I think it's time to rip off the Band-Aid here. Let's grade them.
Okie dokie. Cultural impact. All right, I'm going to give you, as someone who lived through Wilson Phillips when those songs were on the radio, the first time I ever heard of them was in the movie Bridesmaids, when Maya Rudolph's character's favorite band was Wilson Phillips. And I was like, who the fuck is that?
Okay.
And then still to this day, like, I was only like, I think I remember this song from being 6 years old with all of their music.
Sure.
So as popular as it might have been at the time, it also didn't last. So I'm willing to give them a little bit of points here, but not a lot of bit of points.
No, here's my number. I worked out the formula.
Okay.
I want to start with 2 points.
Okay.
And those 2 points are for the number of hits in the Wilson Phillips debut album era, the massive success, the Grammy noms, whatever. And then I want to give them 0.2 more points.
Okay.
Because Wilson Phillips has been on 2 game show / competition shows competing as Wilson Phillips.
Okay.
And so therefore they have forced their way into a separate area of the public eye. And I think it's worth 0.2 points.
Okay.
0.1 for Masked Singer, 0.1 for Celebrity Family Feud.
Very good. All right, Ace of Base. Look, if you had just asked me in a vacuum, I would have said they're a one-hit wonder and they have 1 point. But the fact that that album sold 21 million copies worldwide and they continue to sell like platinum and gold albums for the next one after that all over the world. They're the third highest selling artist in Swedish history. So I think it's a little bit more than just the one because they're super popular in other countries that aren't American.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with you. The question is, what number are we giving them here?
I would be happy with 2.2.
2.2 sounds
keep
great
things
to
competitive,
me.
you know.
You want to see you want to hear something terrible?
I do.
I don't know if it does it for Apple Music because I don't do that. I use YouTube Music.
Right.
But it gives you the number of plays per song.
Okay.
So the least played song on the second album had 368,000 plays.
That seems like a lot.
The most played song, just take a guess.
For Ace of Bases, what was the most played song?
On the bridge.
Like that Beautiful Life? Is that the most played song?
Probably. That is the most played song. Give me a ballpark number, Nick.
200 million.
Nick, it is 198 million.
Let's go.
You did extremely well there.
Got it within 2.
Within 2 million. 198 million plays.
Whew. That's a lot of plays.
That is a ridiculous number of plays.
It's a lot of plays.
Okay. 2.2
Breadth of work.
Breadth of work.
So Wilson Phillips has 4 albums because Christmas albums don't count. And Ace of Base has 5 albums. So they're starting from a 3.4 and a 4.3 respectively.
Yep.
Each one of these artists got enough sales from their first album to certainly cancel out losing any points here, and they're probably going to get a little bit for sales.
I agree.
I think Ace of Base has got to get more for sales because I don't think Wilson Phillips has 21 million albums, period. Ace of Base had 21 million on their first record.
Yeah. Nick, you are saying things that I am forced contractually to agree with the entire time so far.
Excellent. So I'm not sure if you have like a total figure for Wilson Phillips, but I'm assuming it's going to be like a 0.2 to 0.3 ish bump.
That is what I was thinking as well. I was trying to find a more concrete thing, but since their discography doesn't have its own page, it's within the other page, so it's kind of hard to get those figures.
Sure. So I'm going to assume a 0.2 and then move on from that point unless you disagree.
I think that is fair.
Ace of Base is our classic 0.5, I believe, for sales because their global sales are right around 50 million total.
There you go. That's what it is then.
It is. We give them those points. And now we get to give our judgment. So, Pat, what would you like to do to the score of Wilson Phillips?
I'm going to take away. I want to be clear. Take away points here.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
And I'm going to take away 0.3.
Excellent. I'm going to take away 0.4.
That's fair.
And I think that matches us right where we thought we would be. Wilson Phillips ends that category with a 2.9.
Okay. Congratulations to Wilson Phillips on that.
Indeed. Ace of Base. Pat, how many points would you like to take away?
I'm going to take away 0.5.
As will I. And so they will end that category with a 3.8.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have nothing good to say about any of the, no.
Nope. Okay, instrumental talent. I think there's a clear winner between the two. I think it's definitely Wilson Phillips. The 3-part harmonies are just better than anything Ace of Base has to offer. I think the music behind both of the artists is detrimental to the sound overall.
Yeah, which is crazy because if you were to tell me, hey, I have an album for you that has 3 talented female singers all singing in 3-part harmony throughout and features the guitar of Joe Walsh and Steve Lukather, I'd be like, yes, please give it to me. And instead I'm like, no, please keep it far away from me. I would like you to hold on to that, please. I would like you to hold on to that, please.
Yes.
Which is the Wilson Phillips song.
Yes, I picked up on that.
I know you don't have that locked in your brain.
It took me a minute, and then I was like, oh, yeah, write the song. So how many points do you want to give him?
Oh, my gosh. The contributions of the album aside, the members of the band of Wilson Phillips are only contributing vocals.
Correct.
So we have to keep that in mind. I don't want to give too much for the existence of Joe Walsh and Steve Lukather among other famous musicians.
Right. Great musicians can play simple parts.
Yes.
You know.
I'm sure they were all sleeping in the studio at this. I mean, my Lord.
Right.
Let's go with a 4.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because I mean, it was so boring. It's hard for me to give them more
nothing going
credit
on there.
Than that.
Ace of Base. You get less from the vocals here, although they're not bad. The singers are good.
No, the singers aren't bad singers. They're fine.
The music is also just a total detriment. Anything that's being played on this, I guess they're like played. I don't know how much of it is like keyboard being played and how much of it is just like kind of a synth patch where they hit one note on the keyboard and it makes a sound. But it's not good to listen to, and it doesn't really require much instrumental talent.
I have a number in my head.
Okay,
I'm curious what your number is.
I would definitely be lower than I was on Wilson Phillips. I could even go for like half. I could even give him a 2.
I was thinking a 2.
Excellent.
It was just uninspired and not very good.
That's right. Okay.
Songwriting.
So we're going to start with Wilson Phillips. They're starting at a 3.4.
Okay.
and that's for their number of albums. Now, one of those albums was an entire cover album,
And one of them was a Christmas
and
album.
one of them, well, yeah, not that one notwithstanding, another one, their third album was also a full-blown cover album. It was called California, and it was all artists from California, like, well, not even all artists from all artists who got bigger on the California scene, like 2 Canadians, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, but Brian Wilson, some Beach Boys stuff, um, Lindsey Buckingham, like, they cover Jackson Brown.
Oh my
Uh,
God, the Wilson Phillips cover of "Go Your Own Way" has got to suck so
I'm sure it
bad.
does.
You're comparing yourself to Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Like, don't. Okay,
So
Wilson Phillips. Hold on.
their first album was 40% not them. Their second album was them. So essentially, we are talking about 1.6 albums of actual songwriting and poetic talent,
But it's not good.
which puts it, well, so their real starting point is more like a 1.3, if I'm being generous. So
Mhm.
I'm going to start their songwriting and poetic talents at 1.3. Now, based from that 1.3, it's below average.
It's true. I mean,
So I'm just trying to explain
oh,
why I'm getting
tough.
so low.
Tough.
I'm just trying, I like, it sucks, but that's my reasoning, and I think it makes sense.
Tough work for Wilson Phillips here. I think we'll give them a 0.8.
Okay.
Before we move on to Ace of Base,
Of course.
Wilson Phillips, if you're listening, Carney, China.
You have lovely singing
The other
voices.
one, oh my God, I forget your name. I'm so sorry.
Wendy.
I'm so sorry, Wendy.
That's okay.
I know Carney Wilson because that's like an interesting name, and I've just had to do a bunch of research on most of it was about China Phillips, so they're
Sure.
both fresh in my mind. Wendy, what that means is you are not somebody who draws my ire. You're welcome.
That's fair.
But please do me a favor. If and when you pick your next album of all covers again, don't pick people who already do a lot of harmonies.
Sure.
Pick songs without a lot of harmonies
Bring
and
something
add
new
in
to
a
them.
lot of harmonies. Make them your own. Also,
fair.
I pulled up that album.
Mm-hmm.
You should have told me not to, because I'm going to have to listen to the Wilson Phillips cover of Old Man by Neil Young, and I will be disappointed in myself.
But you know what's the worst thing about that? Like, to shout out a new, younger popish group, there's already a fully female 3-part harmony version of Old Man by Neil Young that's amazing, by Truesdale.
Yep. I've heard it.
It's so good. So
absolute insanity that.
So I'm worried.
I mean, I have to listen to it.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting because they're neither old nor men.
That's a great point. I love it.
What can I say?
All right, what are we giving Ace of Base for songwriting? Look, they're starting from a 4.3, and the songs were all the same. Like, every album was very. The second one was their most diverse, but they were all like the most milquetoast pop music that you can think of. There was nothing interesting. There were no risks taken. Super repetitive. I hated every minute of it. I'm willing to cut their score fully in half for the quality, at least.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I cut it in half.
Cutting it in half is 2.15, so that rounds up to a 2.2. Unless you want to round it down.
Round it down to a 2.1.
Very good.
I want to literally break math. I don't want to down to 2.2.
Excellent. Wilson Phillips' poetic talent will start from that 1.3 again. Look, these songs were like very bland, boring, milquetoast pop ballads. Like, I was not digging the lyrics.
Yeah, they were shallow. They were shallow. Here's the thing. I'm going to be honest with you. We could spend all the time in the world talking about both of these artists.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you compare the quality of lyric between Ace of Base and Wilson Phillips is better. Ace of Base is really bad.
Yes.
And I would like to give them both a 1 and move forward with our lives.
I love it.
I
Um,
think that Ace of Base is that much worse than Wilson Phillips, even though Wilson Phillips is still below average.
okay. Um, do we have some X factor that we would like to discuss here?
Uh, I don't. I mean, I
Okay.
don't think. I think you could give a little bit because we didn't actually incorporate into the score
The
Wilson Phillips.
parentage.
Yeah, the parentage of Wilson Phillips. So maybe we could give them like a
Sure.
0.3, like
Okay.
a little bump there. I
Yeah,
think that's about it though.
that's fair. For Ace of Base, I think you pretty much draw from the popularity of the sign, the fact that it maybe was reborn in several different forms of media, or the fact that they're like a top 3 artist in terms of sales from Sweden of all time. Um, but that's all I would be able to say for them, I think. If
It just sucks
that's
for them that
anything.
ABBA exists.
Yeah, exactly. Like they are 90s ABBA. Oh, and you know what else is interesting? I almost forgot to bring this up. Um, are you aware of the scandal? I say scandal in quotes with Camila Cabello.
No.
So she had a single in 2019 called "Liar," which
Yeah.
have you heard this word in like modern pop writing? Interpolate.
Yes.
It's where basically they say they plagiarize another song's melody, but then they call it interpolating, and it's not plagiarizing anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
It's literally like you write you. It's dumb. It's dumb. I want to be clear. It's dumb when you do it the way that most pop does it. I think it could be
yeah,
clever if used. I think it's clever to interpolate in songs. Like a very good example of interpolation, which nobody will have heard but us, is on our album
mhm,
in "Waiting on a Name." No, in "Temporary Answers,"
mhm.
you have that the run section,
Yeah,
and I interpolated that run section
yeah.
into the other side.
That's all, thematic crossover for an
Right,
album-wide
but
experience, though.
I took it exactly this
Mhm.
and put it in where it fit.
Yeah, exactly, and
And
we're also us, so we're allowed to do that.
yeah, oh, I wasn't saying it in terms of the copyright portion of it. I'm simply giving the definition of interpolation
Right,
if done.
and to be clear, Ace of Base are given songwriting credits. I don't
Yeah,
know if there was a lawsuit that led to that, but it is like one of those weird trends in
it is
modern
extremely
pop
popular
where like just
nowadays.
stealing a melody from another song because they're
Yeah.
like, oh, they had the catchy melody before and it's been like 30 years, so I guess let's just try to do this
Yeah,
again.
I can't remember the dude's name because he doesn't talk. I watched the YouTube shorts. I'm assuming they start off as TikToks.
Okay.
There's just this dude who does that. He just sits in front of the camera and he points and like the original comes up, and then he
Mhm.
points and like the mid range version comes up. Then he points in the modern. Like it's just all the same song as you go. It's uh it's interesting sometimes. Like,
Sure.
but most of the time it's done like to the lowest common denominator, and
Right.
it's not actually done with the intent to create. It's done with the intent to sell,
Yeah.
which it just always bugs me. Also, number
Mhm.
4 on the list of top Swedish artists of all time surprised me.
I will also be surprised because I don't know who that is. Can I
Okay,
find
well
out?
here's the list of top Swedish music artists according to the
Okay.
Swedish
ABBA's
newspapers.
number one.
ABBA's number 1. Then there is a group called Roxette,
Okay.
which I'm not familiar with. I'm assuming they're more
Mm,
famous in Sweden.
right. Yeah. I would
Number
have.
3 is, as we mentioned, Ace of Base. Number 4 is the late Avicii.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, of course, with his famous song "Wake Me Up,"
Right.
and among
I could
others,
see
but "Wake
that.
Me Up" is the big one. Some other people on this list were crazy. Eagle Eye Cherry is the bottom of this list with 4 million sold. I didn't.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we
Yeah,
covered him.
we did.
How about that?
Just interesting stuff. But
Indeed.
Avicii surprised me. Although,
Yeah, okay, but I get it. All
honestly,
right.
real talk, between the top 4 artists, because I don't know Roxette, I'll take
Right.
Avicii
We'll see.
in terms of
We'll
listenability.
see. I'm sure we'll cover Roxette one of these days.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
sure we will.
So all that together is that 0.1 or something, or
Yeah, give him a
yeah.
0.1. Do it. I don't think it affects the score.
Okay, let's okay.
Did it affect the score?
It affects the score.
What,
I'll tell
really?
you, yeah, the score comes down to X Factor.
Oh my gosh.
It really actually comes down quite a bit. So
That's
I will
crazy.
tell you, winning this week's episode.
I'm ready.
Okay, I thought you were going to hit the button, but with a score of 11.2.
Good job.
Is both of these artists who have tied.
Wait, no. You're kidding, right?
I'm not.
You know what?
Winning the score with an 11.3 is everyone who didn't listen to these 6 albums this week.
I want to be so clear. Nothing to me is more poetic than this episode with 6 albums of bad and just all bad and just pointless dumb and just really mediocre playing to the mean and not original at all was also just an exercise in futility.
Yes.
I love so much that not only did we waste our time by listening to 6 albums of bad music, we then wasted the last hour and a half talking about them for them to
There
tie.
is no winner.
There is no winner.
And I don't
there are
feel like
only
choosing a
losers,
winner.
and the 2 losers are you and I.
That's correct.
that is what happened. Of course, yeah, we're not. If this was a real season, we would sit here and debate and give one of them a 0.1 to tiebreak.
Right.
As this is a half season, I don't give a shit.
I don't either.
So,
so there it is. They tied for sucking. Like they're pretty low on our all-time lists.
that's so funny that oh my god, the X Factor tied them.
Yeah, because you know what it was when you put both bands at Poetic with 1 point. That brought them within Ace of Base taking a lead by 0.2. Then
so
Wilson
funny.
Phillips got the 0.3 X Factor, and Ace of Base got the 0.1, and it evened back out. And 11.2.
So, shout out to the Beach Boys and the Mamas and the Papas, because that's the reason that is I know we didn't say that's how their career started. We didn't want to say that because we weren't there. That is very definitively how they tied.
And come back next week because we will discuss 2 bands who peaked in popularity in the 1990s.
Oh, shocker.
Yep.
And
it'll be the last time, though.
Yeah.
The last time intentionally.
That's the half season finale.
That's right.
As the mini season finale there. We're going to be talking more 90s. I'm excited. I
am too, and I'm excited for the different stuff that we're going to get in season 8, and I'm excited for, as we previewed on as a conversation on an episode or 2 ago, we do have a fully international season in the works.
Yeah.
Where we do only bands that are not from US, Canada, England, Australia.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very new experience because I think while there may be a couple artists like we just talked about, Avicii and Eagle Eye Cherry, who we know of, and obviously ABBA, all from Sweden. Like for the most part, we're not going to know what we're talking about.
No, and I will be like South America, Central America, Asia, Europe, Africa, even Oceania, all covered.
I'm excited.
So
it'll be it'll really be eye-opening to the vast differences in music.
Yes. And also recording technology.
I'm very full of that too. Especially as we go.
I have previewed some, and I can assure you that will come into play.
That's fair. We should do a comparison of like the earliest recorded music and today's music, and
that
see
would
which
be
one.
super interesting.
See, I just feel like
I would hate the production on both, I feel.
I I would agree. I just feel like my base reaction to it, you know what? Find out when we do the episode, all
That's
right?
right.
You sons of bitches have a great
That's
day.
right. Adios.
But now really, I think what would be interesting about it
Mhm.
is it was such a Herculean effort when recording mechanics and stuff first became available to actually record,
Right.
that you would only record the best of the best.
Of course.
So like the quality of what they're recording has to be significantly better than the run of the mill recording stuff that happens today.
It's a great point.
Like the average level of talent required for recording probably has gone down significantly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anyone with a computer can do it now, really.
Right. Like I could record right now sitting here in my office, in my studio, my professional studio that I'm in right now,
Yeah.
and put together an album.
That would make sense in a professional studio.
You're so right. Oh gosh. Yeah, you know, my 2-bedroom apartment just has this full-fledged studio.
Oh, yeah. Sound panels everywhere.
Exactly, as you do.
Of course.
Oh man, all right. Well, I have to go order dinner because
very
Sydney
good.
is out.
All right. And what are you thinking?
I don't know. I have no idea actually. Oh,
You
you're
know,
going to be really happy about this. I have fully uncovered a newfound like of onions.
I love to hear that.
I used to really not like raw onions, and I got a ham and cheese hoagie, and they accidentally put onions on it. And I had already taken a bite before I realized, and I was like, wait, I don't dislike what I'm eating.
That's excellent because onions are the best.
I'm starting to come around on onions.
Good.
Oh, what's up, dude? What's up, little stink?
Say hi to Uncle Pat. Show me your butthole. That's it.
Cats love to do that. So in the D&D thing that I do with like Keith and a couple other friends, with Keith and James, and then our other friend Scott. I was like, I forgot you like know James now, ish. Keith's cat loves to jump up and show his butthole.
It's
just
very big in that community.
Just constantly.
Yeah.
Like Keith will be trying to talk and the cat will just come up, and then you just see Keith like pushing him away, not letting him, and he will just forcibly show the butthole. It's like insane.
Like, sir, this is my kink. You need to let me do this.
This is what they pay to see, man. This is what they pay to see. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm having for dinner. Right. What are you thinking? What are you eating for dinner? I'm
so
your dinner's
we ordered Mexican last night.
Okay.
And so I had some leftovers before we started. I had a little bit of leftovers. Probably going to have one more snack. I might just stick with some chips and salsa or something.
Nice.
So I'm thinking Mexican, but, you know, part of me is also like Indian would be good.
Indian would be good.
Indian's always good. I had Indian for lunch, so I was clearly in the mood at some point.
Indian might be good because Sydney does not like Indian food.
I was thinking that you could do it right. So could be your opportunity.
Maybe I'll take a look at some Indian food.
Okay. You're welcome.
Yes, I appreciate the tip.
That's right. That's all right. I'm looking out for you.
As you always do.
That's right.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to go, but I will see you
Sunday,
6 a.m. cooking you breakfast.
Sunday. I can't wait.
If I cook you breakfast, I'll cook you vegan eggs.
Thank you.
But you need to make the same face from your childhood picture of you eating eggs.
Oh, of course. I'll put the same pajamas on as well.
Thank you. Yeah, the exact same. Not
I'll
sized
find them.
up.
No, they've got to be somewhere.
Good.
Okay, bye.
All right. Adios. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Although Nobody tuned in, but thank you for tuning in anyway. I love you all dearly.